Hello, listeners. This is Dr. Kimberly Hubinet of Live, Love, Survive, and Thrive. And today I have a special guest. She is a parenting coach, a licensed therapist for over 10 years, and she works with patients to transform their lives after a loss of a loved one or through adversity. Her name is Devora Segall, and I want her to introduce herself and say hello. Hi, Devora.
Hi, so nice to be here today.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And I know that you're an author also, and you have a history of being a teacher in the past. And what happened to have you catapult into this parenting, coaching, therapist type of a role?
So that's a really good question. Um, it goes back to my first experience as a mother. I remember my 4-year-old he was a good kid, but I was having a hard time. Um, I just remember, trying to get him to just do the basics, like getting dressed in the morning and having all this stress because he wouldn't listen. I mean, this is typical. Everybody deals with this, but I would get so overwhelmed by that need to show up in the way I wanted to for my child. At the same time, I didn't know how to communicate with him in a way that would get him to do what he needed to do without causing a rupture in the relationship. Um, my kids are so, so precious to me. If we want to talk about loss, before I had children, I had a miscarriage. I know that's not huge in the scheme of things, but that was definitely a loss for me. It's kind of you're losing a dream and a hope. You're not, it's not actual. But that made all my children even more precious to me. And I just wanted to be that mother that I always dreamed of being, but it was just so hard. And I felt like I don't have the skills, I don't have the tools. So I went, I read the books, I took the classes, and then eventually I went back to school. And that's when I discovered what I'm teaching now, which is DBT, sensory dialectical behavior therapy. And I'm working, now I learned this and I realized it included all the skills that I've been learning until then. And it just put them all together in such a beautiful way. And I wanted to be able to, now that my children are getting older and I feel like I have a handle, not always, not every day, not every situation, but I have a handle on what to do when my children do different things. And like I see so many mothers are struggling with the yelling and the guilt and the disconnection. And I really wanted to be there for other mothers.
You touched upon something that's interesting. You said you did have a miscarriage in the past,
Mhm.
and that is actually some of our listeners do have a loss that way, and sometimes they can't move forward even from that if they're with the relationships with their children and so forth, their other children. Um, did that having that situation happen to you, do you think that communication with your children, your living children, uh, could be suffering, or could it be like did this happen before you had children and then you had the other children? And how would that look for somebody that might be grieving for the loss of a fetus type of thing?
Right. So much of it is, as you're saying, so much of it is about context. When
Mhm.
I had that first miscarriage and I didn't have children yet, there was this fear that maybe I would never have a healthy child.
Hmm.
So that was much more painful than later on. I had a miscarriage. Yes, I was a little sad. I had my hard days. I had some hard weeks, but it wasn't the same level of distress, of trauma. the whole situation there was traumatic. And I don't really want to, I don't need to go into the details, but I was a young 20-something-year-old woman, and it was traumatic. Definitely
Mm,
was traumatic. Is it affecting my communication with my children? If anything, it makes me hold them tighter, and feel more protective of them.
mhm, mhm. That's really interesting, because some people they can't get over the first one and then they don't want to have another try again, you know.
Right.
Did it take you a while to try again?
Well, actually, the doctor didn't want me to try again
Mm,
so fast.
mm,
Um, so and that wasn't, it was like I felt like each child is so precious. Why wouldn't I want to try again? I guess that was my perspective. It's like,
mm.
yeah, this one I didn't merit to raise this child, but you know, but I was hoping to have many more that I could raise.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe, God had it in his heart that maybe that child wasn't going to be whole or something.
Um,
Maybe it was a blessing really that, that happened. But how many beautiful children do you have now?
I have 10.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So you must be, you're living it and doing it and teaching on it.
Yeah, and I can't tell you, as they get older, they get even more precious.
Mhm.
You think you love that tiny baby because they can do no wrong. But I have a son who's turning 35, and trust me, that love for him as a baby, it's only multiplied.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that you were a teacher prior, and then
Mhm.
now you've graduated to being a licensed therapist and a parenting coach.
Mhm.
Can you walk us through the, the basic reasons your why of doing this? And I know you said, there's different ways of talking to your child in a
Mhm.
in a more uh, communicative way, um, and people get frustrated and so forth. But
Mhm.
you've had 10, so you're really an expert.
It's very nice to say that you're an expert, but that doesn't mean that when you're in the thick of things, you'll always know what to do.
Mm,
But you have the basics, and you know when you need help, and know and you have the concepts. That doesn't mean your kids won't throw things at you, right?
mm, mm, mm-hmm. Do you work with people that have lost loved ones also, and that they're working with their kids now? Maybe the kids have lost a sibling, or the kids lost a parent, or is there a way to approach somebody that is in depression from losing something special to them?
Yeah. And the first thing is that their feelings make sense, right? Feelings aren't wrong or bad. And also, grief is a cycle. You never know when it's going to hit you. I lost my father, and I remember getting hysterical about somebody said something that just brought it up in me. And I was crying there in the office at work. And somebody said, like, what's going on? The other person said there were a bunch of therapists there. They said, oh, she must have had a loss recently. It was more than a year later, but
Oh,
sometimes things hit you, and
mm-hmm.
that's totally normal. We kind of, every feel, I talk about it in my book, how feelings are like waves. And giving into the feeling doesn't mean we're always going to feel that way. Kind of have to let it come, and then it will recede. If we keep fighting it, then it's just going to come back stronger.
And what was the name of your book? Did you tell us, the listeners?
So I actually have two books.
Mm,
The most recent book is called The Peaceful Parenting Solution. They're available on Amazon, or you can get them on my website as well. It's called The Peaceful Parenting Solution. That's one. And the other one is called Sensitive Hearts, Strong Minds.
mm,
Now, there's a little bit more of a trauma focus in this first book, But it's basically, the same ideas, only expanded upon them in the second book.
Mm, okay. And basically, can you explain a little bit which one do you think our listeners would be more attuned to, or both of them?
I would say, yeah, I would say the first one is shorter, is more of an intro. The second one really is step by step.
Oh, nice.
Actually called Your Step-by-Step Guide to Becoming a Better Mom. So it's more step by step. The first one gives sort of an overview and it gives some tips of what to do, but I feel like the second one is a little more comprehensive. I actually did an audio version of the second book because a lot of parents were
Oh,
asking me for that.
so you read it. You read your book on
So that
Amazon?
you
Mm.
can't get on Amazon yet.
Oh,
You would actually
okay.
have to go to my website and I could, I could post a link um under this podcast.
Nice. Nice. So you're Seagull Coaching? Is that right?
Yeah. Seagull with two L's. Apparently somebody else has Seagull with one L.
Oh,
So
okay.
Segall
Uh,
coaching,
uh-huh.
COACHING.com.
Yeah, I'm interested to, I don't have kids per se, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews.
Mhm.
Would you say that it's harder or easier to speak to somebody that's not your kid? Is there a really difference of um the relationship between uh, a aunt or uncle to their niece and nephew versus, somebody that is your kid? That, I mean, do
Well,
people
yeah.
communicate the same or not really?
So it's really about the role. If you're
Mm,
an aunt or an uncle and you're raising the child,
mm-hmm,
then you're going to end up having the same challenges as a mother will have.
mm-hmm,
The same thing with a teacher,
mm-hmm,
right? What's our role? If a teacher would be raising the child, she might have the same struggles as the parent, even though she knows all the right things to do. Well, she went to school, she learned about child development, right? But when it comes to raising children, even if they're not ours, it's a whole different dynamic.
yeah, yeah. And so back to the question about the types of people that you coach. D- How do you have people that you coach that are struggling with the loss of a loved one and they're hard to communicate with their children?
Um, Not currently,
Uh-huh.
but I have worked with parents that were dealing with loss.
And what would you say to somebody that was dealing with loss and the kid is acting out because of the loss? Is there any special thing that would be different than just talking to them differently?
So, you're asking a really, really good question. And again, I do address this in my book. There's something called vulnerabilities,
Mm-hmm.
right? When a
Mm-hmm.
child is having, a loss is a vulnerability. I don't speak specifically to the idea of loss as a vulnerability, but I
Mm-hmm.
do talk about vulnerabilities that we have to keep in mind what's going on for the child at the moment that we're trying to discipline him or trying to get him to just put his clothes on. We have to know where the child is. And in order to do that, we have to first know where we are,
Mm.
right? So it starts with mindfulness. It starts with noticing what's going on for us. If
Mm.
we're having a rough day because we've had a loss, we need to take really, really good care of ourselves. We need to make sure we've eaten properly, make sure we had that good cry to our friend, to our therapist. We need to make sure that we're taken care of so that we can be there for our child. And we need to validate ourselves that this is hard. We're sort of we're going uphill, right? We're treading uphill. So we need to give ourselves grace. We need to give ourselves slack. That's the first step is really, really taking care of ourselves. And the second step is thinking about what's going on for the child. And depending on the age, even asking them, what's up? You feeling sad about whatever happened? right? That's okay. We connect before we try to redirect. I didn't make up that line. Um, I think in Dan Siegel's book, The Whole Brain Child, I think he uses that line. But that's so true. We need to connect to the child before we can redirect them to what we'd rather they be doing in that moment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Um, so sometimes parents like to hide their feeling in front of the kid or the child. Um,
Mhm.
is that really not very healthy? Like, is there sometimes where you should hide your feeling versus not hide your feeling?
So that's a really good question. We don't want to burden our child with our own strong feelings. That's one side of it. You know, in DBT, we talk about a dialectic, the idea that two opposite things could be true at the same time. On the one hand, we don't want to burden our child. On the other hand, if they could see that we're having strong feelings, it's really important to communicate with the child that this feeling has nothing to do with anything they did or didn't do, if it
Mm,
does, right? In other words,
mm-hmm.
we're human and we have feelings. And ideally, the intensity of our feelings will be able to express somewhere that's not with our child, because that can be a little frightening for the child, depending on the age. But if the feelings are leaking out, or if we're just, if we're just feeling, if our feelings are not super intense, but we're having feelings, then it's great modeling even to communicate with the child what we're feeling. And that also almost gives them permission to share their feelings with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so oftentimes I know people that, they just don't want to express themselves in front of their kid because they're afraid that the kid's going to absorb everything, or the opposite. There are the kid's already so stressed out. If they do something or say something, then they don't want it to be their fault. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is getting pretty deep. So, you know, on a lighter note, basically, uh, you do peaceful parenting solutions, right?
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So really, we want inner peace and outer peace, right? We want to have, we want to be at peace with ourselves and how we manage our home and our children. And we want we want to have peace with our children. Peace doesn't mean the absence of conflict. Peace means positive, um, gentle interactions, right?
Mhm. So, having 10 kids, do you think all of your kids will want to have 10 kids too, or will they only want to have one kid or no kids after being in the family with all of these brothers and sisters?
I would say some and some, right? Yeah, I have some children that are just, I would say most of my children want to have large families.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of them so far is not so enamored of that idea. She's
Mm-hmm.
actually she's actually a therapist as well. So
Oh,
it's just interesting.
nice. Oh, yeah, that's right. You have adult children.
Right.
What do they range from? From
So
age?
the oldest is turning 35, and
Uh-huh.
actually turned 35, and the youngest is 9.
Wow. And so the youngest, like, since they haven't seen the oldest one in their household, right? They're somewhere
Mhm.
else. Um, do they reach out to their older siblings, or do they not have a connection with them?
Oh, they're very connected.
Oh,
They're
they
very
do.
connected, but it's like it's like an older uncle kind of
Uh-huh.
relationship. It's not a it's just it's a different type of dynamic.
And you've always wanted to have a big family? It's
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. Did you come from a big family also?
Yeah, yeah. I'm the oldest of 9.
Wow. See, my family, I'm the oldest of three, and my mom's side, she's the youngest of 14. And my
Hmm.
dad's side, he was the oldest of four. So it's kind of like not like everybody had like medium sized families.
Hmm.
And I don't have any kids at this point, but I really like to have foreign exchange students come. And so, last year I had two foreign exchange students from one from Spain and one from Italy. And
Hmm.
then this year I'm going to have one from France. And it's a little something. For me, it's growing uh, one part of my life of relationships with another, like a child. So I'm like the host parent, but I'm not really the parent. So, do we interact the same? Probably not. But we are supposed to be the parent role in the year that they're here. And so, do you have any tips for somebody that is a parent for a year?
Wow, wow. I really admire that so much. One of the benefits of raising your own children is that you kind of knew them from when they were very young. And what you're dealing with is almost like what I do with my in-law children, right? When someone joins the family and they're a fully grown adult, and I care for them so much, and they care for my child, right? And how do I figure out what makes them tick, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do I get to know them in a way that I already know my child? It's tough. It's tough
Yeah.
because, hopefully they were raised well, but, you know, I want to have a relationship with them. So how do I do that? So yeah,
Yeah.
you're asking a really good question. Like
Yeah.
new tips. So the first thing is just be a really good listener. Hear them out. Try to get to know them. Not only asking them questions, just notice, pay attention, you know.
Yeah, because they're my kid for a year.
That's right.
And they're gonna be like 17. So that means they're still not an adult yet. But then when they turn 18, they think they're an adult after that. So yeah, they have these rules that they have to abide by while they're here in the US. But, this is part of my giving back to society, because I don't get anything out of it, but I get a relationship.
Mhm.
And for a forever relationship that's across the world, is a neat feeling to have. I was a mentor in the past for a child that was from 2 years old all the way to age 18. And then after that, after she graduated from high school, then I was kind of empty again.
Mhm.
And then now I have this one coming. Well, I had the other two, and then now I have this new one coming. And so, like, that's how I appreciate life in the realm
Mhm.
of live, love, survive, thrive. Uh, what does my podcast, Live, Love, Survive, Thrive, does those words, what do those words mean to you? I ask my audience and my interviewees this question each time.
So to live means to be living a life that's meaningful, right? That you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose. To love means to connect, right? I like to connect to others and I like to help other people connect to the important people in their lives. And to survive means that, life isn't always simple, right? A lot of us have gone through stuff, but we're survivors, and survivors can become even stronger. Where the bone broke can often be the strongest part of us. So there's something called post-traumatic growth.
Mm-hmm.
When there's been a trauma, like you're describing, I don't know why you're taking in these exchange students, but it might be that something difficult that happened in your life is making you want to do this. So that's the idea. We can take the difficulties, we can take the lemons and make lemonade. So that's what I see as survive. And thrive is kind of going to the next level, and really, putting all of this together so that we can thrive, that we can
Mm-hmm.
truly feel that we're fulfilling our life's purpose.
So are you at the thrive mode in your life right now?
I would say I cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I cycle through all of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And my guess is that we all do.
yeah. Like I always tell people, there's you're born and then you die, and then your life is the journey in between. Everybody's unique. So,
Mhm.
I always ask my listeners, to think about these kind of things and, write it down if you have something good that comes up in our conversations. But what is a quote that you live by every day? Do you have a special quote?
Quote that I live by.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so when we were talking before, you asked me for a quote that I hold of, that I believe
Yep.
in.
Yep.
So that's really what I'm going to give you.
Uh-huh.
Do I live by it? I'm not sure. I'm not
Oh,
sure
okay.
I'm on that level, but it's what my work is about.
Okay.
My work, and really, I would say what my life is about. So there was this rabbi who said that the furthest distance is the distance between the mind and the heart. So I really feel like all my work is helping people bridge that distance. When people come to me in therapy, they know what they need to do, they know what they need to be thinking, but they're not, right? So in therapy, I try to help them to bridge that gap. As a coach as well, people know how they want to show up as a parent, right? And they're not. So the work is learning the skills and practicing and getting the support we need to move from knowing to actually doing.
So would you say there's a difference in definition between a therapist and a coach? Or are they one and the same?
So I would say they often interchange, but they're not the same. Um, so there's many different ways to define therapy, and there's many different ways to define coaching.
Mm,
Often therapists do a lot of coaching, which
mm-hmm.
is often I do that as well. And often coaches do a lot of therapy.
Mm,
Again, if they're well trained enough, they know when something has reached the limit of what they should be treating. But very often, you're in a session with a client as a coach, and the client will bring in some deep trauma, and which really should be worked on with a coach, and just don't have a choice but to work with it, to go there. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I'm trying to keep my coaching more in a group community setting so that
Mm-hmm.
I don't, break those boundaries, because really I'm only licensed to do therapy in my state, and in New York, like in 2 states.
Mm,
So, if I was working with somebody and felt they needed therapy, they needed some deeper trauma work, I would refer them to another therapist in their state. The
nice.
coaching work that I do is very practical. It's,
Mm-hmm.
what are the skills I need to learn, and how can I learn them in order to show up better in my life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it could go deep and it could go superficial. Like to me, it seems like you're doing like medium to heavy thoughts, because they need that. A lot of people need this work that you do, and it's very encouraging to find somebody like yourself with 10 kids, with the parenting, with the teaching credentials, with the licensed therapy credentials, and a coach and an author. I mean, you've done it all. Wow.
Well, I guess that's part of my living, right? And my
Yeah.
driving.
Oh, definitely. A lot of times also, we're kind of stuck in a situation, and then we try to find somebody like accountability person to help us out.
Mhm.
How can people reach you?
So I have my website. They can book a call. It's at segalcoaching.com. And you can book a call, and we could speak for, 10, 15 minutes, see where you're holding and what you need, and we can go from there.
Oh, nice. And then you have a Facebook and a social media type of things, Instagram. What other things are you on as far as platforms?
So I'm on Facebook.
Okay,
It's called Connected Moms. That's the name of my Facebook group.
nice. Okay. Okay, well, great. Um, Last thing, do you have a favorite recipe or a food that you like that you want to share with our listeners?
Healthy or unhealthy?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Um, hmm. Well, I don't know if you guys are into peanut butter, but we have a holiday coming up, and I made these little cakes to give out. Um, they're called Regal chocolate chip peanut butter bars.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Good stuff. Yeah, yeah. So basically, it's a basic cake recipe with peanut butter added
Uh-huh.
and chocolate chips on top that you sort of cut through, make it look like sort of like a marbling.
Uh-huh.
I could tell you the recipe. It's basically, I didn't invent it, but it's 3/4 of a cup brown sugar, 3/4 of a cup white sugar, about half a jar of peanut butter. Um, what else? Oil, about 3/4 of a cup oil, about 2 cups flour,
Uh-huh.
um, a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. You mix the flour and the baking powder together. If you're using regular Skippy peanut butter, you don't even have to add salt. Really, if you're using brown sugar, also, you don't need to add salt. I would a teaspoon of vanilla or vanilla sugar. You mix it all together and you pour it in a pan and you bake it at 350 for about, I would say in the area until obviously until a toothpick comes out clean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, I forgot the eggs. Starts with 4 eggs. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good thing
Start with
to.
the eggs. It's 4 eggs.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I'm a very like when I cook, I never follow a recipe.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm giving you the basics,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes I'll substitute spelt flour for white flour. I'll use avocado oil. I'll use you can even try substituting, peanut butter without sugar, but then maybe I would add a little salt to the recipe. You can play around with it. It's pretty forgiving, but that's my
And
recipe.
and then when do you put the chocolate chips on top? After
Oh,
you.
so you turn on the oven. Okay, you turn on the oven at 350. You put it in the oven. You set the timer for 5 minutes. Oh, you sprinkle the chocolate chips on top, about half a cup of chocolate chips, just enough to cover. And then you stick it in the oven and it'll melt. After 5 minutes, you take it out and you take a knife and you swirl and you cut through,
Oh,
or you cut
neat.
the other way
Okay.
also. And then you
Yes.
put it back in the oven for another 20 minutes or so.
I'm gonna
Some of
try
them live a
that.
lot longer, a lot shorter. What? Not a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
shorter.
gonna try that. That sounds good. I love peanut butter and chocolate. I love Reese's peanut butter cups.
Uh-huh.
Hey, it
Oh
has
yeah,
protein. The
yeah.
peanut butter has protein, so it might be healthy for you. Who knows? Hey, I have a sweet tooth, even though I'm a dentist, by the way,
Oh
by
really?
trade. And so, but I like myself a Reese's peanut butter cup. So that
Oh yeah.
sounds so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any last thought for the day before we say goodbye?
Yeah, no, just know that, we spoke about vulnerabilities before. Just know that as a person, a lot of people here are dealing with loss, whether recent or past. Just know that you're carrying a lot and give yourself grace and take the time to care for yourself, because you deserve it.
And listeners, hey, this is a very powerful session that we've had today. This is Kimberly Hubinet of Live, Love, Survive, Thrive, and you are
Devora, Devora
Devora
Segall.
Segall. It was so nice seeing you today and talking with you and getting to know a little bit more about your work. It's phenomenal work. So, listeners, please look her up and get in touch with Devora if you have any parenting issues or, wanting to speak to her about her life. Okay? So, have a great day, and I will see you next week. Be well at Live, Love, Survive, Thrive.